ADR. My name is Mark Kruchnet. I'm joined here with Joey and Mark. And the first thing we do in all the public meetings in Ross is if anyone wants to speak about anything that is not on the agenda tonight for up to 3 minutes, now is your chance. Anyone in the audience here or at home? And if no one wants to do that, the first item is to approve the minutes from January 21st, the last meeting. I was not here, so it would probably be better if you two recommended and seconded the approval of those minutes.
I can recommend approval for them.
Thank you. And the way it works here, for those of you who have not attended an ADR meeting before, is once one of the planning projects comes up, the town gives a short presentation. Then the owners and or their design team will give a longer presentation, during which time the ADR members can ask questions or for clarifications. After that's done, we then open it up to the audience in case any neighbors, or anyone who's not a neighbor has any questions or comments. And then at the end of that, we bring it back to the ADR and only the ADR to make recommendations to the town council. And the first item tonight is 103 Bolinas Avenue. Alex?
Good evening, ADR members. Tonight, the applicant at 103 Bolinas Avenue is requesting a recommendation to the town council for a nonconformity permit, a variance, and a minor exception permit. This is the existing rear house here, and the project is proposing to expand the rear deck and a 40 square foot addition at the rear of the residence, extending it by 3 feet. All new siding for the addition will match the existing home. And also a minor exception permit is required to place the heat pump within the side yard setback, and a variance is required to go over the floor area. We did receive a letter from a neighbor, 101 Bolinas Avenue, concerns due to privacy. And staff requests that the ADR group discuss the merits of the project and provide a formal recommendation to the town council. Thank you.
Thank you, Alex. Would the owners or their designers like to present the project? Thank you. Oh, and can you turn on the microphone?
Great. John Bozell, presenting on behalf of myself and my wife. We're the owners of 103 Bolinas Avenue. Appreciate the opportunity to come before the ADR. We did come before you for the conceptual review, and the feedback we got then was very helpful. And it was instrumental in our decision to go ahead and pursue the formal application and be here tonight. Ariana grew up in Ross, went to Ross School. We've lived here for 30 years. This is the first time we've come before the city to make an official request to do anything that would require city approval. So we've been pretty low maintenance over those 30 years. We are seeking to extend the southern wall of our primary bedroom by a simple 3 feet. One of the key things that allow us to do is to build a larger walk-in closet. There was one actually included in the original plans when this house was built in the early 90s. This has become a little bit more than just a nice to have. We have a very cramped closet space, and we sometimes have to use step ladders to get to our clothing. And as we're now both Medicare eligible, it's really not a good thing for us to have to be dangling on 1 foot to reach a pair of shoes or up on a ladder. Doing this will also allow us to get rid of the drop ceiling, also allow us to enlarge one window and move it further back so that then we can recapture the view of Mount Baldy that we lost when the neighbors did their remodel and the mayor or one of the council members at the time had them shove back their house and block our view of Mount Baldy. With this move, we'll also install new taller French doors that will allow in more natural light and provide a similar look and feel to our living room walls as well. There will be no change in the exterior of the building other than the simple 3 feet extension. The height and width of the house remain the same. So I just want to say that We have, the only thing that will be adjacent to will be a shed next to that, adjacent to our neighbor's property, that's on our neighbor's property. That shed is right up against the fence. So there is really no impact on privacy. We're simply moving that southern wall 3 feet back to our neighbor to the south, and they live way up on a hill, so nobody's going to be impacted. We have full support from that neighbor to the south, and then also the neighbor to the west as well. With this, we're on Bolinas Avenue. We're in a situation where the lot sizes are super narrow. 70% of the homes will all exceed the FAR requirements and the setbacks. So we really basically can't do anything to our house without violating the FAR, or the setback regulation rather. So this is a case where even a simple 3-foot extension requires a variance because we're within that setback. Setbacks really just are not practical for a narrow lot in Bolinas Avenue. We'd have to have a super small house if we were to be in compliance with the setbacks. So those are the main points I want to share for this super simple project. And we certainly would be happy to answer any questions. We've tried to work with our neighbor, communicate with our neighbor to the south, to the east, 101 Bolinas, send her a couple letters, offer to talk, and we just have not been able to, she's not been willing to communicate with us. Very hard to understand how at all the extending our wall would have any impact on the shed and its foundation. I really don't understand that. And again, I don't see how it would create any privacy issues just by extending that wall. We've already got windows on that side, so I don't understand it.
Thank you. Mark, Joey, do either one of you have any questions?
I just have a quick question. From the last time we saw the project to this time, can you discuss any changes that were made, anything that we should be aware of?
No, I think it's.
We have made minor changes to it.
Yeah, have her, just so we know what we're just to look
Yeah.
out for. Thank you.
We have made a few minor changes to the windows, which we have not yet submitted, but we'll be submitting soon. And we're getting the structural done as well, but, kind of slowing everything, waiting to hear from you guys. But there's minor changes to the windows, new windows that we've proposed, but nothing on the east side. Yeah, nothing on the east side with the neighbor 101. That remains exactly, we're using the same exact window that we currently have. It's a very high, what do you call those windows that are really high?
Clear.
Thank you, clear story window, and it's going to be the same width. It'll be up a little higher, actually. So it's not going to create any privacy concerns. Oh, I don't have my glasses on, unfortunately. So can you, oh, I see where it is. It's right up there, the middle one to the left, I think. Isn't that it? To the left.
Further left, yeah.
I think that one, isn't that it, the clear
Yeah,
story?
yeah.
That's the one, because we're going back 3 feet, we have to recenter it. So it'll be worked on, but it won't be any wider.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, and nothing else? So I'll open it up to the audience. We have all received and read the letter from your neighbor at 101. And if anyone in the audience here or at home wishes to speak about this project, now is your time to raise your hand.
There's no one online.
Okay. Who would like to go first? Okay. I went out there and visited it. I read the neighbor's letter, and I stood in the yard and saw the story poles. I actually agree with the applicants that there's no privacy issue because the windows are identical to what's already there. I saw the storage shed that was there. It's not affecting the privacy, and I'm pretty sure that from the windows in the house, you could not see the story poles that extend 3 feet south. And if you could, it would make no difference, no real difference. And I think when you go to the town council, for a variance, it's often a legal hurdle for the town council. I would suggest you mention, part of that is usually you can claim that you're not being allowed to enjoy the rights and privileges that a lot of your neighbors have. And so maybe, presenting the town council with some FAR percentages from some of your neighbors might be a helpful way for them to get over that hurdle. And I would recommend to approve the project as is.
I also would recommend to approve it as drawn, and the findings I would suggest to the town council for the extra FAR. Normally, we do not allow an overage to be exacerbated. So that's kind of a law or a rule with us. But there are findings on that particular road because our Ross code makes all of them non-conforming. So it's basically those small, narrow lots, nothing is conforming, and we have to just do it on a case-by-case basis, and therefore give the town council reason why this one works, and this one works because it doesn't affect anyone, and it's so few square footage to make a home better, and I support it.
Yeah, I also support the project as drawn. I would reiterate what Joey was describing on the findings. I would say that another mitigating factor is the southern neighbor is significantly at a much higher elevation and can't really see this in any way, shape, or form. So the encroachment in the rear yard just doesn't have an impact on anybody. I would say I would encourage you to talk with your neighbor about potentially the drainage that goes down that side. If there is an issue, I saw something in that report or that letter indicating something along the lines of drainage. I would just make sure, I didn't see anything on site, but I would just make sure that if there is something there, just take care of that with them. I did not see, as Mark discussed, I didn't see this being an impact on the neighbor to the north's view of the trees or light. That home is pretty far away from the property line, so I don't see any visual impact at all. So I can fully support this project.
Great, thank you. Thank you. And now the next project is 230 Wellington Avenue. Alex or Roberta, would you like to? Yep. Do a presentation? Oh, and can you do me a favor on your way out? Can you just close the door? Sometimes traffic goes by and it's a little noisy. Thanks.
Good evening. The applicant at 230 Wellington is requesting approval for design review, a demolition permit, a hillside lot permit, a nonconformity permit, an ADU permit, and a variance. This is the existing home right now, and the project is proposing to demolish the existing residence and construct a new two-story home. The residence will feature hardy lap siding, painted light beige, vertical cedar accents, black aluminum windows and exterior doors, and a two-car garage and a one-car parking pad. These are the materials. And a trash enclosure will be built next to the parking pad. All right. An 800 square foot ADU will be constructed beneath the proposed garage and parking pad. The project also includes new landscaping with patios, walkways, and retaining walls up to 6 feet in height. Outdoor features will consist of wooden decks, two wooden decks, one at the rear of the house and the other adjacent to the ADU, along with an arbor, an outdoor kitchen, a fireplace, and a pool and spa. The pool equipment will be located beneath the deck. A variance is required to exceed the allowable floor area by 692 square feet, also to allow the outdoor kitchen, the wooden deck, arbor, patio, pool and spa in the side yard setback, and a two-car garage in the front yard setback. Staff requests that the ADR group discuss the merits of the project and provide a formal recommendation to the town council. Thank you.
And would the owners or their design team like to make a presentation? And as you do this, it would be helpful if, per Mark's comments from the last project, you detailed anything that changed from
Sure.
last time to this time.
I'll start with that, actually.
Thank you.
If we could just bring up the site plan, Alex.
here's a laser just in case you have to hold on it too. So.
Perfect. All right, so the changes from the last time you've seen the project, and I probably won't go into too much detail in terms of the design, which you've seen, and the materials. But if we can just go to A11. So our proposed site plan. So we've expanded so we did meet with the fire department. I think that's important to mention, as we all talked about that last time. They're happy with the extension of this apron here, which extends the roadway and provides ample space for a fire truck to set up here for fire access. And they say that there's also the ability to turn around here using a combination of existing neighbor driveways, such that we don't have to do another more intense turnaround on the site. And they've confirmed that the access distances from the fire truck are acceptable, and the distance to the hydrant and so on. So they are very pleased about the additional parking here. We did add a trash enclosure here that's off the road. It's clearer on the printed plans, but we have basically 2 enclosed spots and then 3 additional unenclosed spots. So they were very happy to hear about our intention to just remove the pressure of parking on the end of Wellington to make sure that the vehicles are clear for fire access. And of course, they approved our initial plans as part of the design review, including the VMP, which Brad may talk about a little bit. So those are some minor changes here. We also did reduce the overall length, or width, I should say, of the deck here and its encroachment into the setback. So if you saw the story poles on the site, they're not, it was impossible to run a line. So the existing building is here, and we're pulling the new proposed deck 2 feet inboard of where that existing rear wall is. So reducing the overall size of the deck and the overall size of the encroachment, which still results in a total reduction in terms of the massing that's in that rear setback compared to what's there today. We also did think about your comments pertaining to the roof and the roof slope, and we have changed this from having 2 slopes to having a single slope. It does comply with the height limits. We like the design aspect of an angled roof as shown in the rendering. We think it adds to the overall design intent of the project, which is a modern project, but not necessarily the emphasis on the flat roofs. And it also allows for greater light access from these upper windows here. Let's see if there's any other changes I should mention. There will be maybe some comments from Brad in terms of just the fire department's requirement on the reduction of trees, and those will be shown on the landscape plan. Fortunately, that's mostly occurring here on the downhill side where there's a big redwood grove on the adjacent property and the neighbors are very far away. So we feel like the removal of trees in this area will have very little, if any, impact to neighbors. There's also some thinning of the bay trees along this side. But again, because the neighbors here, and we have pretty much a blank wall here, and the primary residence is at an angle and fairly far away from the property lines, and especially far away from the neighbor's structure, we think that the reduction in those trees will not really increase any issues in privacy. So those are the main changes to the project. I think the main thing I really would like to point out that's not exhibited in this, Alex, and that we may be able to submit or incorporate into documents for town council, is that the sloping of the lot is unique in that there is a building pad here already, which we are expanding on. But I actually brought this, and I can show this to you in a second. I just want to reference the numbers I came up with. The slope of the actual proposed building pad from this corner all the way to this corner is only 25%. So obviously less than the 30% of the hillside lot ordinance. If you go even further from this corner all the way to here, it's actually also 25.4%. So all the way from this corner to here. And I think what's challenging for us is that this portion of the lot that's at the north end here, this is where it gets steep. It gets steep right here. And it's obviously not a buildable area of the lot, but it's penalizing us and thrusting us into the hillside lot ordinance. And I took another measurement, which is taken from around the setback line. So if you take a slope measurement from the setback line from here, actually all the way over to the property line in a perpendicular manner, perpendicular to the contour, it is still below 30%. I think it's 29 or something like that. And so we feel that the placement of the house on the lot responds to the intent of the hillside lot regulations. This is also combined with the fact that both floor plates for this structure in particular are below the road. And so overall, there is no obstruction of views from the road and very little additional obstruction to neighbors' views from anywhere else, since everyone else is so much higher up. The restrictions of this lot and the setbacks really, we're not claiming that necessarily as a hardship, but we do feel that the requested variance of additional 600 square feet in order to have enclosed parking that creates safety from the road and resulting in a three-bedroom home that's 2,440 square feet is a very reasonable sized building for this size of a lot, and it's very comparable with neighbors on all sides and also all along Wellington. So I think that's kind of my description of how we arrived at this and how we feel that this is a reasonable proposal. I know that there's a lot of other projects that will use the calculation of the building pad itself to determine the slope of the project, and the project really is here. And if we use this same sort of approach, then we fall below the 30%, and not by a small margin either. I think I'll maybe leave it there and have Brad give a quick description of the landscape, and then we can address questions.
Actually, before you leave, I just want to see if there's any questions for you, and then we can ask Brad questions after his presentation. Any questions, Joey?
Is the building the same square footage as it was the last time we saw it?
Yes.
Has the pool moved, or will Brad
Brad will address that.
Could address that.
Yeah, no, the pool has not moved.
And then, I have one other question for Brad. Thank you.
All right, thanks.
Hi, everybody. The landscape plan hasn't changed much. We did work a lot with the fire department on reducing some of the vegetation within mostly the 5-foot zone, and then we worked with them on the driveway area quite a bit to get them much better access to the house and all the turnaround spaces up there. And then we did also work with removing some bays, mostly on that lower steep slope, and removing some of the limbs that were encroaching closer to the top of the garage roof than they wanted to see. Most of the landscape stayed pretty similar to how it was presented at our last conceptual review. And I'm mostly here to answer any questions you might have. I think, Mark, maybe you have some questions about some landscape items.
Yeah, I would call it the northeast corner between the garage and the neighbor, there's a large bay. I think it's a bay that's in between the proposed garage and the neighbor's home. Is that staying or is that going?
No, that has to go. That was part of the fire department requirement.
Yeah. Okay.
And it's on a steep slope, and we're trying to get that turf space between the two spaces.
And then I think you answered the pool's in the same location it was in the first
The
time we
pool's
saw
in
this.
the same location, yeah.
And then maybe just, can you talk about what is proposed along that property line as far as landscaping specifically at the pool and up that slope?
That's English laurel. That's a fire department favorite. It just is such thick glossy leaves, and that's one plant that they allow us to do hedges and privacy screening with.
And is there a fence that goes along there, a new fence, or is the existing fence staying? What does
It'll
that look
be
like
a new fence, a new 6-foot wood solid fence will go along all those property lines that around the pool. Yeah.
I think those are the only questions I had. Oh, I'm sorry, no, one more. You have a bioretention basin because you're increasing the impervious surfaces. It's in the northwest side, I think? Is that right? I
Let's
think I'm
look at
remembering that
civil.
correctly.
There, it's on those slopes.
Okay.
Yeah.
And that's not impacting any, I know there are a bunch of trees you're saying you're taking out over there. Is that the reason you're taking them out, or it's the fire department saying take them out?
It's the fire department.
Okay.
We were gonna leave all that whole hillside the same way it is, and they want the bays out of that south-facing steep slope, which totally makes sense.
Okay,
Yeah.
thank you.
Yeah, I have some questions. Did you consider moving the pool back toward the street at all?
We looked at that, but what happens when we move it back towards the street?
Toward that path you see just pulling everything back.
Yeah, we looked at that, and what happens is that the back wall gets taller. And right now, that back wall is, I believe, 8 feet tall. So as we push it back, it gets quickly to 10, and 8 feet is just more in a scale. There is right now, I think, the lower neighbor is pretty happy that we're putting the screening in the pool where it is, because right now there's a deck that goes over the top of the fence looking down on the neighbor. So you can go right to the fence with a 6-foot tall deck that looks right down into their property. So then the neighbor below is super happy that we're taking that out.
How about the neighbor that's right at the corner of that pool? I walked out there today, and there is a neighbor whose corner of their house is right, kind of looking over the pool.
Yeah, we've met with them and have gone over the plans, and their primary view faces the other side of the property, so they're fine with it. This is a secondary view, and there's already terrace gardens there with pathways that look down onto their space, and we're actually moving pathways and moving use away from that property line. There's a path right now that just walks right next to the edge of right along the fence.
Okay.
Yeah, I believe we have unanimous support from neighbors.
And the setback from that property line is what, to the edge of the pool?
Is that on one of these sheets? I can, yeah,
I have it somewhere.
10 feet. And the
Okay.
pool is relatively narrow right now.
Yeah. Okay, thank you. Thanks.
Sure.
Brad, I don't have a question, but I have a comment on the bioretention. On those pipes, I would strongly recommend, because of some problems we've had recently, putting some kind of screen on the front of the pipes so no debris can get in those, because they're so wide, it's almost impossible to clean them out because the roto-rooter tools are only meant for small pipes. And at the far end, where they're perforated so the water can leak out instead of gush out,
Yeah.
roots are attracted to those holes and will grow into them. And they often have like a netting around, but sometimes that netting doesn't last very long.
Yeah.
So having like double netting or triple netting it would be a good cost-saving preventative measure going forward on projects.
Okay. Yeah, Civil does most of those details, but
But
I
you
can,
could easily just add that afterwards.
Sure.
It's just extra wrapping, and it would just help with the maintenance over the years.
sure, yeah, bioretention's a relatively, probably been doing it extensively for 10 years, 15 years, so these are the things you learn about bioretention, I'm sure.
Thank you.
Okay, sure.
Just one question for Alex, though.
please.
On the planning. When we have the cover sheet, we're talking, there's a proposed square footage of FAR of 2959. That's not inclusive of the ADU, is that correct?
Correct.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Is there anybody in the audience or at home that would like to comment on this project?
Oh,
Okay,
check. No.
I will bring it back to the ADR for recommendations to the town council. Who would like to go first? I went first last time.
Sure. Yeah, I think I'd like to be consistent with my comments that I made the last time around. I still believe the house is still too large for the site. I appreciate the architect's effort to show how different components of the site meet or are under the hillside lot ordinance, but unfortunately, none of those actually follow the way we measure hillside lot ordinances, right? We measure from corner to corner. So I think the last time I suggested on a square footage basis was, stick with the existing 27 or 2267, add 200 for the increased size of the garage, which I think is a good move. And that would add up to a total square footage of 2467. So you're about 500 over what I think this lot should have. I don't see a hardship that means that you should have an extra 500 square foot of a hillside lot. I think the parking is all good, and the addition of that covered space is a positive thing. But yeah, I don't see a hardship. It's already over it's over the code existing as it stands today. I think giving them a bonus for doing the covered parking is an appropriate thing to do. So that's the house square footage. So I'll stick with what I said last time. I think it's appropriate to grandfather in the existing square footage and add a little bit, but not 500 square feet more. As far as the pool goes, the pool's the other sort of, and I think there's a trellis, which I probably should have asked a couple of questions about. But I understand not moving the pool back. Brad gave a good rationale for not having a 10-foot to 12-foot retaining wall by moving that pool back. It doesn't feel appropriate with respect to the neighbor's home. It feels really much right in their wheelhouse, regardless of whether they think it's a approval or not. It seems I have a difficulty to come up with findings for why the pool needs to be there. There is another flat area in between the two structures on the site. I don't think that's an ideal place for a pool, but I don't think here is an ideal place either. So, with those kind of recommendations, I couldn't recommend it as drawn. I think it needs to be reduced in size still, as I said last time we saw this. I'd be more willing to hear your arguments about the findings for the pool location. That would be something I'd be interested to hear how your opinions, what your opinions are on that.
So I'm looking over the notes from the August 20th meeting, just to remind us all of what we said and what our comments were. And all of us had a problem with the pool over there so close to the setback. And when I went and saw it today, I really was struck by the corner of that house there, right next to the pool. So that sort of stands. I do feel that that pool is just too close to the setback. I can support the square footage because of one specific reason, and that is that we've got that new two-car garage, which I think is very positive. It's taking cars off of the road, and it does the town a service by hiding the ADU basically under it. So I can support that. I do really realize that this is being held to a hillside lot standard when the buildable pad is pretty flat and there's already a house there. So I could go with the overage on the FAR, but I feel like the pool is ill-sited. It's just too close to the property line. So I'm pretty much saying what I said last time. I wanted to see the house and the garage kind of move closer together and the house out of the setback, but I see why that can't happen. And there's already the building pad there, and they're trying to make use of what is there. So if I were to make findings for extra square footage, it would be, I do think the hillside lot ordinance can be a hardship when it's applied. When it's applied, I think the intent of the hillside lot ordinance was to not have huge houses up on the hill that everybody saw that were hanging over the hill. This house is already there, and it's actually being pulled back from where it is. So those are the findings I could make for that.
Thanks, Joey. I agree with Joey on the size of the house. You know, I don't think it's necessarily, well, I guess you can say the hillside lot is a hardship. But like I said last time, just to be consistent, I was fine with the size of the house and the way it's drawn. I'm still fine with it. I understand Mark's arguments. I don't have like a reason why the extra 500 square feet should be there, but it doesn't seem like it hurts anybody. So it doesn't matter to me.
I'll just clarify, for the hillside lot, it's 800 square feet over the hillside lot ordinance.
Which calculation, there were two that the architect had, there was one at 8% and one at 10%, based on, I think there was a site.
Oh, here.
I'm just looking at the code standard. It just is
Right.
listed code standard 2137, and the proposed is 2959, so it's 800 square feet over what the hillside lot says it should be.
And to me, I guess whether it's 500 or 800 over, when I look at the story poles and look at the lot and look at what's there, it seems fine to me. I mean, but I don't think you're being illogical. I'm just saying it seems fine to me. Regarding the pool, I guess the majority has already said that the pool should be not so close. It seems like it would be better if it was elsewhere, but the neighbor's fine with it. I think I'm sort of fine with the pool, how it is too, but I understand that I don't know how you, maybe because of the hillside lot ordinance, you can claim to the town council that's a hardship and therefore it needs to be there. That might be the argument to make if you're going to go forward with the pool in that location. A variance, as we discussed before, sometimes needs a higher legal hurdle, and the town needs to have some kind of finding. So I would talk to Alex and Roberta about that if you're going to the town council with the pool in that location, especially with the majority of the ADR saying that they thought it should be pulled back further. Okay.
And another point to make is that this is still a pretty modest house. It's still, it's basically 3 bedrooms, if that. And there's a point at which you want people to redevelop these sites like this. It really needs to be redeveloped, and in order to encourage people to do that and put that money into a site and end up with a 2-bedroom house, it's almost substandard in terms of the amount of money they would be putting into that to rehabilitate the entire property. And I think we're seeing one right after this one that's similar. So that's another reason I could support more FAR. I prefer to see less. I prefer to see not 600 or 800 over, but we are getting a 2-car garage and an ADU underneath it that nobody can see, which I think is a real plus. So.
Yeah, no, that's a good point. Okay, thank you.
Is there any discussion on the materials? We good with the materials and the colors and whatnot?
Yes, sorry, forgot about that. I do feel it's a little too bright for up on a hillside. I don't know why it has to be beige. It could fade into the woodwork, so to speak, a little bit more and have a darker color. Because again, it's up on a hillside, so it's part of the code to use natural materials and natural colors. And I actually don't think the beige is the right call.
Yeah, I would concur with that. I was hoping you would bring that up. Yeah, I think it needs to be a little toned down, probably 2 or 3 shades, if it's going to be in that family of colors.
just more earth tone, for lack of.
Yeah, darker.
Yeah,
Dark.
okay.
Yeah, because you are losing a lot of tree coverage, proposed tree coverage on the north side of the home and on the street side with respect to that garage. So you're going to see this, it's going to be bright. So I would suggest it to be quite a bit darker.
Okay, thank you.
So do we have a direction for that?
Yeah. Okay,
Yes.
Okay.
okay, and the third project is 11 Morrison Road. Actually, the town will talk for just a minute or two, and then you can go up to the microphone and do it. Thanks.
Good evening. Tonight, the applicant at 11 Morrison Road is requesting approval for design review, a demolition permit, hillside lot permit, and a nonconformity permit. This is the existing home. Okay. The project is proposing to renovate the existing 32 square foot residence and detached art studio, reducing the floor area and adding roof decks. The exterior of both structures will be updated with WUI compliant wood cladding. And for the main house, improvements include new windows, fully glazed doors, and new metal shade awnings. The project also includes 2 decks, a main level deck and a second story deck adjacent to the main bedroom with a glass panel and metal guardrail. These are the materials. And for the landscape, they're going to rehabilitate the existing landscape, incorporating new plantings beneath the main deck and upgrading the existing driveway to an impervious surface. Staff requests that the ADR group discuss the merits of the project and provide a formal recommendation to the town council. Thank you.
Thank you. Now you can go.
Hello. We obviously have a challenging project here in poor condition and a difficult street to work on. The fire department is not allowing us to change the footprint of this house because we can't make fire apparatus turnaround work at this location. So what we're proposing is reducing the size of the project, the existing house, keeping it in the footprint as is, but reducing it to a 2-bedroom house. Raising the ceilings to give it some volume, but overall, we've reduced the size of the house as it flows up the hill. If you went and saw the story poles, the western exposure story poles are the top of the glass railings, which will virtually disappear from the site. We've reduced the size of the house in part by removing the carport, which allows us to have more off-street parking. Parking up there is a real problem, and we're trying to keep the road as clear as we can. The setbacks say that right now we're at 11.3. That's to an existing shed. We're actually 43 feet back on the front setbacks. We believe the design of the project enhances the property and creates the least amount of impact to the hillside lots and to the neighbors. And that's what we're trying to do. We're just trying to put a house together without impacting, at the same time, getting through fire department and how to build something up there.
So just to clarify and just, sorry, you have 3,200 square feet there now. And could you not build 3,200 square feet again if you chose, or would even that be not allowed because it's somehow in a different
It would
footprint?
be allowed. The problem we are running into, the ceilings downstairs are 6'10" currently. And then the upstairs ceilings were around 9 feet. They're just we couldn't start splitting it up. The fire department is requiring us to keep 50% of the exterior weight-bearing walls in place as part of this build, or it is an unbuildable lot. We've gone down this road with them.
Yeah, no, I'm sure you've examined all possibilities. That
Well,
must be,
we actually had an approved house a few years back, but we could not get it past fire department to. Yeah, we've been, you've seen
once I
this.
came up,
We could not get through fire. So we are, so
And we had a beautiful house.
yeah, I mean, yes. Yeah, obviously, well, I guess saying my opinion of that, how illogical all that is, that you can have a 3,200 square foot fire trap, and that's okay, but if you build something new that's fire resistant at the same size, it's not okay. Yeah, yeah, okay. But anyway, I guess our opinion on that doesn't.
or change the shape.
Yes.
We couldn't move a wall.
Okay, well, yeah, so my opinion on those regulations is unfortunately irrelevant. Okay. Do people have questions? I guess my comment, not question, is then anything I would say about the shape of the building or the exact location is irrelevant because it can't be changed. Okay. Any questions?
Never encountered this situation.
We had neither.
Yeah, lucky you.
Yeah. So the access drive, this is a minor question, but there's a large tree that kind of infringes the drive. Does that have to go, or does that have to?
No, the oak stays. What we've done is
stays.
bowed the driveway around
it,
it
okay.
to try to give it a bit of room. Bartlett has been dealing with this tree for several years.
Okay,
The condition of it isn't fantastic, but our owner wants to preserve all the,
as much as possible.
as much as possible,
Yeah,
so we are going to work with that.
got it.
But we're not going to design around it. Bartlett suggested we not design around it, but we are going to
Okay.
work with it.
Can you talk a little bit about the access to the pool? I see just a long staircase, is that?
That's existing.
That's the existing stair
Yeah,
down?
that is the approach as it is now.
Okay.
We haven't, our owner is hesitant to go down this road of building this house, trying to do this since we got shot down last time. So we're not dealing with any landscaping or anything as part of this process. We're just trying to get a house that we can get insured and have safe for the neighborhood and usable.
So essentially, the stair would be rebuilt in its
It'll be
location,
rebuilt in its
because it's not functional today.
existing location.
Yeah, okay.
It's a little more in this rendering, a little more on stilts.
Prominent, yeah, I don't think
As
it's that
opposed,
prominent in
it's a
person.
little more maybe on the ground currently.
Yeah, that's
Like
the way I would
especially that mid part.
Okay,
And then, of course, that upper deck doesn't really extend that far now. So like you see those, from this
Yeah, yeah.
particular angle, you're seeing the stilts more, but obviously you wouldn't see that from the road.
Right.
And they'd be underneath the staircase from the other angle. So this is sort of a weird angle where you're seeing those stilts the most that you could ever see them.
Yeah.
And I don't think you're ever going to be, well,
Can you talk about the height at the, I guess it's the western end? As you said, the story poles indicate the glass railing.
Correct.
What is the height at of the building at that point? Because you've kind of raised it up a bit and you've pushed it out a little bit. I was looking in the sections, but I'm unable to find exactly what that height is at that extreme corner. Or that face of the home.
I'm sorry, I'd have to
Yeah.
pull it up. There it is.
This one. This one, or?
Okay, is that dotted line, is that dash line at the
It would be
facade?
the,
This one right here.
yeah. Sorry.
No, that's okay. I'm on sheet 302. I think there's some sections there somewhere right in that area. Yeah, you were on 301. So that section line at 301 that you just had there is taken at the facade. Okay, I see it.
I can't read it there, I'm sorry.
I think I found it on sheet 302. I think
Okay.
that's the one. Okay. It's under it looks like it's under the 30-foot
It is under the 30 feet.
limit.
We dropped it to 29.6, and I
29.6.
believe that
Okay,
that's where
thank you.
that one was taken from.
Yeah, okay. Yeah. It feels big on the site, like that corner. It doesn't surprise me that it's 30 feet. I don't have a ton of questions, I don't think. Joe, do you?
Now, I'm looking at the west exterior elevation, and you have the 30-foot dash line, and you see in the distance that,
Oh, Mike, your mic. Yes.
sorry. I just want to know at what point, if any, does it pierce the 30-foot?
It does not.
It does not, okay.
The next sheet, Joey, shows that from the
Right.
south. Yeah, that's what I was questioning. And there's on those windows on the south and the west elevation, you've got a divide
Between the clear story and
between the clear
doors.
story. Yeah, can you describe what that exactly is? That's some sort of sunshade of some sort?
It's a shade, it breaks, it's just breaking up the lines. The architects currently have it set as a metal, like a mesh type of thing.
Okay.
The owner has asked if it possibly is a glass to give a little bit of rain protection,
Okay.
but it hasn't right
Some
now.
sort of it's
It
something
is.
that projects out.
It projects out from the building,
Okay,
not very far.
okay. And the intent of the windows are steel windows or?
They're a steel, they're a Fleetwood or something similar to that, aluminum with just taking in the views into consideration.
Yeah.
It's got a great view.
Could you speak about the materials in general?
Yeah, we set up, the owner wanted a wood cladding, which we may or may not be able to find WUI compliant, something that will work. We also set up with it'll be a painted or a stained finish. We also gave it the Hardy Artisan type panel, so we could have a little bit of movement as to what it's gonna be. It's gonna be an earth tone, that brown color, kind of a weathered wood. That was what we were going for. Something that just kind of fades into the hillside.
So sheet 34, 4.21 has the color palette.
Okay.
Any question?
No.
More? Okay, we're good. Thank you. Yeah, I will. Is there anyone in the online audience who would like to speak about this project?
No,
Okay.
no one online.
So, Joey, why don't you go first this time?
Sure. I have no problem with this project as drawn. I feel like you're doing the absolute best you can do with it, kind of an impossible situation that I have never heard of. But I think it's well designed for what you're able to get there. And I think all the neighbors should be really happy that someone's developing that piece of property and not just leaving it as a dilapidated home. So I think it's well designed based on what you're able to do.
I concur with Joey and have nothing to add.
I think the only concern I have is maybe the lantern effect, the amount of glass we're looking at on that corner, right, on that south and west facade. It's super tall and it's pretty there's a lot of square footage of glass there, and I do worry that it becomes a huge beacon sitting up on the hill. I don't know, do you guys share that at all?
One, it wouldn't be huge. Two, no, just because it's 1,800 square feet instead of 32.
Oh, the
no,
square footage
I was
isn't very
kidding.
big, yeah.
I did think of that, and I was wondering, is there some way, it would be nice if there's some way that's not expensive to make glass less reflective. So when the sun hits off it, it doesn't reflect out like a mirror. And there's probably something you could put on a window to do that.
There probably are. I know Fleetwood offers some less reflective glass. I'm not prepared to speak to that today, but.
Maybe that could be your,
Some options.
maybe
Oh, you
that,
need to be at the mic, sorry,
sorry.
just that's.
maybe that could be your recommendation is.
Yeah, I
less
mean,
reflective
again, I think
glass.
it's, yeah, I would look into ways to minimize either the reflectivity, but again, at night, I think this is it's gonna be kind of a lighthouse effect. It's perched way up high. That's my only concern, is that the increase in glass on that corner is pretty substantial. Again, I'm not sure, I appreciate the design, and I don't have any, other than reducing the clear stories or shortening it a tiny bit, which I know you're looking to get some volume in the home. Otherwise, that's really my only concern. And I do think both in the daylight, when the sun hits it from the west, exposure is gonna be significant. And then at night, when the sun goes down, it's gonna be pretty bright. I don't know, Joey, do you have any thoughts on, you kind of look like you want to say something.
I actually thought of the same thing, the whole lantern effect, and just looking at what's there was a house there that was, a very tall house with windows up high. So I feel like they're kind of making the best they can make out of this very tough site. And usually that bothers me, but I feel like with this particular home, that might be kind of one of the only wow things they can do here. So I would encourage you to look into some sort of glass that mitigated that lantern effect.
Anything else, Mark?
No, I think that's my only comment. Yeah, otherwise you're in a tough spot, and I apologize about that. That sounds terrible.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, the next item, number 5, the annual selection of the chair.
Last time you weren't here, and we were going to vote you in as the chair again, but we didn't feel like it was appropriate to do so without you being present. So now that you're present, but we are missing 2 others, but those others, if I recall, were also interested in you being the chair. So I guess the question to you, Mark, is, are you comfortable being the chair?
I will Zelensky right along and be a dictator.
We're not in wartime though, so that's okay. Yes. I would like to formally nominate Mark Cruchette as the chair of ADR for another 50 years. I don't know how long the term
I
is.
second that.
Okay.
Do we have to pick a vice chair? Joey is our current vice chair. Do we have to pick another?
I would second that.
Yep. I second
And
that again.
then, are there any information, discussion, or new agenda items?
I was going to ask the staff a request, actually. One thing I've noticed when we do projects that we've seen before, it would be very helpful to me to have a note when we saw them, so we could, or maybe even a link to the minutes, so we can go back and reference as Joey and I did that, I dug around and felt, when did we see this thing? So that would be very helpful, even if it's just a little hyperlink or a footnote to say, hey, you've seen this before, guys. Go and look at what you said, so that we have some consistency or potential consistency. That'd be really helpful.
Yes, I think that's good.
Okay.
Yeah, right.
And that one that just came by, when did we see that?
That was quite a while ago.
2021, I believe.
Yeah, and that was so different, I don't know if they would have helped. Okay. But knowing, the prior project we'd seen more recent. So that would be really helpful.
Yeah,
for
that'd be
me.
great going
Yes.
forward.
Yeah, we'll definitely do that. We do that for town council at minutes, but I guess we don't
Right.
do that for ADR,
Yeah.
but we'll definitely
Thanks.
start doing that.
Yeah, it is helpful.
That and also a bullet point of what they have changed
Okay.
along with this, because it's sort of like we said, there's certain things we said to do.
Yeah,
that
you
didn't
want
get-
to make sure that they are presenting the things that changed.
Yes.
To us, yeah.
Yes.
Like most of the drawings typically would come with bubbles or revision notes or something, but they don't do that for us, which is fine. But it'd be helpful if they had just a list, like we changed the height, we moved the pool, we did
Yes.
nothing in response to your comments, something like that would be helpful.
Exactly, because I feel like it takes us time for each of these meetings to go through the drawings, research, look at them. It would just be much faster if you could say, all right, I remember this project, what'd they do?
Yeah.
Just to clarify, is that for the ones that went to conceptual review or even ones, like the last one you saw where it was approved in 2021?
Both,
And
if
they're applying
possible.
for a new project?
I think both. I mean, I think
Just
this.
like seeing the history of it would be good, whether it was conceptual or a normal review, just having a link
Because
to the
like
minutes.
for 11 Morrison, they changed everything.
Yeah, I think so. There are two topics. One, the link would be helpful, flat. And then I think what we're describing on the changes, so 11
Oh, yeah.
Morrison,
Well,
you
this-
wouldn't want them, you would have them list, say, we changed everything.
Exactly.
There it's everything, you're right. So yeah, we won't want you to put out a
Yeah.
100-point bullet.
No.
100 bullet
And you
points.
guys shouldn't do, that should come from the applicant, the
Right.
changes that they made.
And then you could just
should
look
come
over it and make sure it's,
Right, just so we know, and that one, you saw it in 2021, and they had to completely change it because of the fire department.
Yeah.
Sure.
Just a little history, so to save us some time digging around.
Yeah, that little note that they put in about the fire department turnaround, et cetera, was very helpful for us to read it and say, oh, that explains why they're doing what they're doing for this thing. Because
Yeah.
that definitely is unusual. Yeah.
Sure, we're
Yeah,
happy to
that'd be
do that.
super,
Yeah,
super
it just would
helpful.
save us some time.
well,
Yeah.
thank you.
Thank you.
I motion that we adjourn. Okay, so